Hi, my name is Brandon Gillin and I'm an immigration attorney. Today I wanted to talk about applying for US citizenship through what's called naturalization. So I'll be talking about why you would want to do that, how you can qualify, and what resources we have on our website to help you out with that process. So first of all, why would somebody want to apply for US citizenship if they're already a green card holder? After all, green card holders can work and live in the US just the same. Well, there are some important benefits to applying for citizenship, becoming a citizen. First of all, you can vote in an election. Be careful not to vote in an election if you are only a green card holder or not even a green card holder, just a non-immigrant. It can get you in big trouble. That's a ground of deportability with no waivers available. Another reason that people would want to become a citizen is that they could perhaps work in a federal government job. Can't do that if you're a green card holder. Another reason that some people might think is beneficial, depending on your outlook, is that you could serve in a jury. If you're not a U.S. citizen and you get a jury summons in the mail, there should be a box at the bottom that says, "I'm not a U.S. citizen, please excuse me from jury duty," and they should do it. Otherwise, if you serve on the jury and then a U.S. government agency finds out come the time that you apply for citizenship, could mean problems for you. And last but not least, if you're a citizen, you cannot be deported from the U.S. That is very important for people, particularly for people with a criminal history, particularly a criminal history which could potentially result in your being found removable by the government. Actually, there's another reason, a big reason, why people would want to become a citizen, and I see this all the time in my practice. It's in order to get your family members here from another country. So particularly if you're a green card holder, say, and you have your parents living abroad, maybe they're living in their home country, they're living in China, India, the Philippines, and you can't get them here. You can't petition, at least, for their permanent residency. You could try to help them obtain a visitor visa, perhaps, to visit you. But say, what if you have children, and you really could use your parents' help with childcare? Well, that might be one major reason why you would want to apply for U.S. citizenship if you're already a green card holder, because in that instance, you can file for an immigrant petition for your parents to come over and become lawful permanent residents. That way, they can help you out with your childcare. So, do you qualify for U.S. citizenship? So first of all, to become a U.S. citizen, you first have to have lawful permanent residency, a green card. And for most people, you have to hold your green card for at least 5 years to even apply for citizenship. If you are married to a U.S. citizen, living in marital union is what they say, then you can file early. You can file 3 years after you get your green card. In fact, in both instances, there's a way that you can file 3 months early. So if you're not married to a U.S. citizen, you can file 3 months before the 5-year anniversary date of the issue date of your green card. And likewise, if you are married to a U.S. citizen, then you can file 3 months early from the anniversary date of your 3-year green card. And a note on those 3-year green cards, in case you're interested. The important thing there, like I said, is that you be living in marital union with a U.S. citizen the entire time. Now, for most people, that's going to be perhaps the person the U.S. citizen who petitioned for the naturalization applicant for their green card, and then they just live together for those 3 years. But it doesn't say it has to, the law doesn't say that it has to be the same person. In fact, you could be living with 2 U.S. citizen people consecutively. So say for example you were married to the first one, and then the marriage ended somehow, and then there was no gap in between the time that you were living with the first person and the second person. In that instance, you could still apply for U.S. citizenship within those after 3 years of having a green card. Green card, if you can show that you were living in marital union with a U.S. citizen the entire time. So anyway, that's the first requirement. You have to have your green card for a certain period of time, either 5 or 3 years. Second requirement is that you have to have been physically present in the U.S. for at least half the period of the period in which you're applying, either the 5-year period or the 3-year period. So half the time in the U.S., at least. Also, you have to have a continuous presence requirement. So no trips outside the U.S. for that lasted 6 months or longer. So don't take a really long trip outside the U.S. Now, there are some exceptions to this. You can preserve your eligibility for naturalization in some cases. There's a form you file, and we can talk about that in another video. But for purposes of this video, just know that no trips outside the U.S. that last 6 months or more. And again, there's an exception to that as well. And if there are what's called exceptional circumstances surrounding your long trip. So one time we had a client who was Canadian, and she had to go back to Canada during the period which she was a green card holder. She was applying under the 5-year period. She had to go back to Canada because her father was gravely ill, and she had to take care of her father. She had no siblings to help with that, and her mother was not able to take care of the father, so the burden fell on her to do it. And so during the naturalization interview, we provided evidence that her father was gravely ill, hospital records, medical records of those type, and some proof that she was actually maintaining her residence in the U.S. You know, she maintained her apartment. I believe she lived in an apartment. So you can prove that even though there was a trip that lasted over 6 months, in this case I think it was about 9 to 10 months, there was an exceptional circumstance surrounding that long trip, and you can get over that requirement. Another requirement is that you show that you possess good moral character, and this is a monster topic in and of itself, but good moral character is something that Homeland Security has to determine in order for you to be naturalized. So there's lots of ways that they will say you don't have good moral character. Crimes, fraud, something like that. Please talk to your attorney about the good moral character requirement. If you have something on your record, a criminal history, for example, a charge, maybe there's some drugs in your past. Drugs are another big topic that we can't get into on this video, but there could be an entire session video on the topic of drugs and naturalization. And then finally, when you go in for your citizenship interview, they're going to test you. So they're going to test you on history and civics. There are 100 questions from which they could draw from to ask you, to quiz you on. If you answer the first 6 correctly, you'll pass. That's a 60% pass rate. And they will also test you on your English ability, so your English writing, speaking, reading. So it's basic English. It's not something that you have to be, like an English professor or something like that. It's who was the first president? George Washington was the first president, something like that. And typically, the officers that I've encountered tend to draw the English test questions from maybe the history and civics questions that they just asked you. So they tend to do the history and civics questions first, and then they'll kind of give you a gimme or two in the English test, or vice versa. And how do you apply for citizenship? So there is a form that you file called the N-400. And the N-400 is a form that you can download for free on the USCIS website. That's uscis.gov, I can provide a link. If you're watching this on YouTube, I can provide a link at the bottom. If you're watching this from our website, check out our resources page on a link directly to the USCIS website, not necessarily to the naturalization page, but if you look at our naturalization page, which you likely are on, then you'll see some resources to some links down below that will provide you with the form. Anyway, so you apply using the N400. There's a filing fee that USCIS charges, and this video is being filmed in August 2020. The filing fee is $725 right now, but it will be going up starting October 2nd, 2020. The filing fee will be going up to $1,160 if you file online, and $1,170, $10 more, if you file using a paper application. So you can save $10 if you file online. And once you get the application filed, typically it takes about a week or two to receive your receipt number back. Your receipt notice will come in the mail both to you and your attorney if you have an attorney. It will have a receipt number on it so that you, if you want, you can hop on the USCIS website and check if there's any updates on it. There are even some apps you can download, some third-party private apps not associated with the government, that you can plug in your receipt number and they will give you like an automatic update on if there's any action taken on your case. That way you don't have to, habitually check every morning when you wake up to see if there's any movement on your case. It can drive a person crazy. So once you get your receipt notice, typically it's, you have to wait a little bit for then your next notice, which is biometrics. A biometrics notice typically comes within about a month, although again, I'm writing this in August 2020 and we're in the middle of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Things have changed. I could make a video about all the changes. Right now, biometrics notices are being delayed because the USCIS field offices have to comply with social distancing measures and whatnot. So typically people are waiting 2 months or more for their biometrics notice. Anyhow, you go do your biometrics on the day indicated on the notice, and it might say, some Tuesday at 7 a.m. Some field offices used to have the policy that you could go in early if you just showed them the biometrics notice, and maybe you went in the day before at 3 o'clock p.m. Because 7 a.m. the next day was really inconvenient for you. I wouldn't advise that these days. That has been a policy that has used to be in effect in the Seattle field office. To my understanding, no longer. It's quite risky. If you do that now, you could be turned away and you'd have to come back 7 a.m. the next day. Portland field office, I believe, doesn't do it either. I'm not quite sure about the other ones, but you want to maybe check or just play it on the safe side and go to your scheduled biometrics appointment, which, by the way, doesn't take very long. You do your fingerprints and they take your photo, and it should only take 5 to 10 minutes. Once you get to a person, the thing you might have to wait in line for a little bit. There might be some people before you doing theirs. Anyway, that's a requirement for basically any immigration application. What they do with their fingerprints is they send them to the FBI to get your FBI background check. So they will obtain a copy of your criminal history if you have one. And then after your biometrics, you just need to wait until either you get maybe a request for evidence, which is pretty rare on naturalization cases. So you just wait for your interview notice to arrive. And the interview notice will give you a time and date for your scheduled naturalization interview, where they will go through your application, administer the tests, and then decide whether to approve you or not. How long does it take to get a citizenship interview? Well, that's always changing. And it's unpredictable, especially in these days. A year ago in Seattle, it was taking 1 year, almost on the nose. There were outliers. Some would take less time. Some would take many, many more months than 1 year if there was some issue that DHS thought was present. Then we can talk about how to resolve those issues too. But let's say for purposes of this video, instead of me trying to predict how long your citizenship case is going to take in the wake of COVID and potential furloughs to USCIS, go ahead and check the USCIS website. Just search for USCIS processing times. You can also find this on the resources page of our website, gillinlaw.com. So at the citizenship interview, I've already told you that they administer the tests, but they also will go through your application. It used to be that they would go through it with a red pen, your physical paper application, back before there was any option to file online. These days, they're doing the naturalization interviews. Instead of having a printout of your application and going through with a red pen, they'll still go through your entire application with you, but it'll be on the computer, and you'll be answering the same questions that you wrote down the answers for on your application. They'll be asking you, and so this is a requirement for the Immigration Services Officer, the ISO, at your interview. They're going to go through each and every question on the N400. So, what is your name? What's your date of birth? Have you ever used any other name? If so, what is it? Do you want to change your name? If you do, you have to show proof that you have a name change order from a court, district court, whoever does the name changes in your jurisdiction. What is your address? What is your address history for the last 5 years? What's your employment history for the last 5 years? Have you ever been a member of a group, organization, club, society, fund, foundation, what have you? And then there's a long list of national security questions, immigration-related questions, and criminal questions. Go through each and every single one of those. And then finally, there's a list of questions that you tend to answer yes to. Say, for example, do you support the Constitution of the U.S.? Yes. Do you want to take, or do you understand the oath of allegiance to the U.S.? Yes. Do you want to take that oath? Yes. Things like that. You'll see it on the form. Anyway, at the end of the interview, if you pass all the tests and there's no issues concerning the officer, then they usually just tell you, at least in my jurisdiction and during this time, they tell you whether or not you're going to be approved right there. If there is some issue, then they will say so. They'll say, well, I need to look into this, or maybe they'll just be vague about it, and they'll say, well, I need to review it one more time, and you'll get a letter in the mail with my decision. And typically that's more for green cards, but it does happen for citizenship cases too. And then maybe you'll get a letter in the mail a few weeks later with your oath ceremony notice. That means you were approved. Or maybe you'll get a letter in the mail saying that they're requesting more evidence from you. Say, for example, an explanation on why you were arrested for DUI, 5 years ago, something like that, even though maybe the conviction fell outside the statutory period of 5 years. That's for another video. Anyhow, let's assume that everything goes well. You pass your interview. Usually they'll schedule an oath ceremony for you at that point. Could be the same day. During COVID-19, at the time of this video, they're doing the oath ceremony. The officers are administering the oath ceremonies right then and there in their office, and you become a citizen like that. Then, what do you do when you get your naturalization certificate? Right then and there, print it out for you. You can go apply for a U.S. passport right afterwards. You can beeline it straight to the passport office at your local post office and apply for a passport. And you can also file your I-130 for your mom just with your naturalization certificate. You don't need a passport to do it. You just need proof that you're a U.S. citizen. And of course, all the other required documents for that I-130 that you can check out on the instruction page. Anyhow, this has been the process for applying for citizenship, kind of how it works. I hope that this video has been helpful, and if you had any further questions about Naturalization, you might be able to find those on our resources page, and also on our page, our few pages devoted to naturalization and citizenship matters in general. You can also contact us. Our email address is listed on our website, our phone number, and you can check out our other videos for other useful information. Thanks a lot.